So, Scott, I am so glad you were available today. We had a brief conversation the other day, met each other, and found that although most of your experiences in startups, most of my experiences in like global kind of enterprise things, there are a lot of themes that are very similar, like maybe surprisingly similar if you haven't looked at them. I think people at these extremes look at each other and assume their lives are a lot different, but maybe not as much.
Yep.
So anyway, maybe actually we should start. Do you want to tell us, your best 30 seconds on your background with startups?
Sure. Yeah. 30 seconds. I've been building and growing startups for 12 plus years. 12 something years ago was the first hire in an early stage company. Was brought on to help build and grow the company, marketing, sales, operations, product, everything except for writing code. Help build and grow the company, would build each team to a certain size, then hand it off to somebody else, and it kept pivoting to where the next challenge the company had, where they needed me. About a year and a half into that experience, my 0 to 1 personality started flickering, and I started getting involved in coaching and mentoring early stage startups and founders who were behind us in the typical startup growth KPIs. One founder passed me to another. Now over 10, 11 years, I've mentored and coached more than 2,000 startups all over the world, all different verticals, very much trying to focus on the 0 to 1 and 2 to 10. So building the foundations and the early growth of a company. And then that flicker comes back in and I get bored very quickly. And I'm like, okay, thanks, but no thanks. Let me go back to the more chaotic times.
Yeah, very nice. And super briefly, I've spent my career, I think, in the other extreme. I was a product manager at IBM, Microsoft, and SAP. So
Yep.
these really huge global companies. I was in the business process management space, which meant we were solving, I don't know if it sounds like it, but we were solving really complicated problems,
Yep.
modeling and executing business processes. So a lot of complexity. I did do a fair amount of new product development, but also there are always products in the portfolio that have been around forever and were,
Yep.
limping along, or zombies, the company wanted to kill them but couldn't. And what we started talking about, I had always wanted to vet this. I think I've vetted it before with some other startup people, but I've done some coaching with startups, and my experience, very limited, has been, most of the time I'm in tech. So there's some very smart technical people that get together. I've been a product manager a long time, so I know that actually building the product isn't the hard part. It is that doesn't mean it's trivial or easy, but that is not the hard part. Very clearly, the hard part is building a sustainable business around it. And my experience was, or my observation was, of the startups that I've coached, it's really more go-to-market issues, and loading, the go-to-market thinking, not having the skill set, not bringing on people early enough. So we have, hey, I built it. That was not easy. This thing does cool things. And then, they don't get it in front of enough people to sustain themselves. It may even be a good idea. If they had better market, they might have survived. So that was kind of the entry point. And yeah, you've coached 2,000 startups. To what extent does that resonate? To what extent is that really an oversimplification?
I think it's spot on, and to the point of startup versus enterprise, I think there's a reason why the data says that the most successful entrepreneurs and startups have founders in their 40s. And my thought is because they've come from the enterprise world and they feel pain points of the bureaucracy, lack of tools, slow way of doing things. And they just are frustrated with some process. And they're like, God, there has to just be some better way or easier way to do that. And I think then they come out and they say, hey, I was doing this job. I was an auditor. I was a project manager. I was whatever in an enterprise company. It's slow. It's bureaucratic. It's whatever. And we can't do something, or we can't do it easy enough. Hey, if I could build a product that does this and solves this, hey, that would be great. So I think they hit on the most important part of, I think, the success of the company early on is problem market fit, where they themselves have had this pain point in the enterprise side that they have, with the expectation of other auditors or engineering managers or project managers at other large enterprise account companies have the same exact issue, right? Because they have the same bureaucracy and size and slowness and access to tools. So for me, the number one reason, and again, I've spoken to more than 2,000 founders over the years, and ones come in my inbox every week having trouble fundraising and getting people to the website and signups and conversions and trials and things like that. And before it even started, I'm like, the problem is problem market fit. No, you're not solving a problem. And they come back, oh no, I spoke to 25 friends. I did a survey of 50 people. No, that's not the issue. Okay, no, here's my calendar, book some time, send me a website or a deck or whatever you have, and I'm happy to take a look. Okay, jump on the call and I'm like, okay, I was 99% sure. Now I'm 99.99% sure. The problem is lack of problem market fit. That you're not solving a product. You're just building another product. You're building another team collaboration tool. You're building another project management tool, right? You're not solving a pain point for somebody. And again, that's why so many of these companies fail. It's, oh, I want to build the drive to entrepreneurship and being a billionaire. And, oh, I can build this tool for whatever it is. Well, if you're not actually solving someone's problem or solving a problem that exists within the other existing tools or something that they don't, what the hell are you different from somebody else, except for maybe price these days? And we can kind of get into maybe the idea of price finally being a differentiator and maybe not being so much in the future. But yeah, the whole go-to-market and understanding who's the right, what problem am I solving? Am I solving it for the right group? And how do I get in front of people? Do I have the right skill set? And that's one of the most common issues of founders. It's, hey, I have to do everything. No, you don't have to do everything. You shouldn't do anything. Like the things that you're good at, that's what you do every day, because that's where you can have the greatest impact on your business on a day-to-day basis. If you're not good at social media and you're having your business aligned with doing social media ads, you shouldn't be spending 6 months watching YouTube videos and tutorials of how to do Facebook ads. You go hire a professional Facebook ad person so you can get the return on investment from day one. I don't do Facebook ads. I don't know how to do that. I'm going to spend the money to do it right from day one versus trying to figure it out myself and save the money. And because it's 6 months from now, and again, I've seen this over and over and over and over again, you waste thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours trying to figure it out yourself, and you don't get anywhere at the end of the day.
Yes, so much comes out of, so now I'm reliving our first conversation because it's just so rich, like so many parallels. And, you know, the first thing that occurred to me is we look at the failure rate of all products. It's probably similar, quite frankly, between big orgs and startups. And I think you're right. If we think about the motivation, what excites somebody to build something? For a startup, it may be this frustration with things done at scale and this opportunity to solve their own problem. But often we don't stop and think, yeah, this is a real problem, but is it a real opportunity? Are people willing to pay to solve this problem? And can I get this idea in front of enough of them?
Yeah.
And that happens too. Like I think in the enterprise, a lot of what motivates people is this idea of something exciting. It can be very like tedious to just maintain a mature product.
Yep.
And in the org, it seems that's where the advancement opportunity is. That's the new thing. So we hear about something, we get excited about it. We talk to even there, they have the maybe disadvantage of having a customer base, which brings me to the next point, who will validate interest, but we don't spend enough time validating commitment. So we sit down, we hear what we want to hear. People are super excited. We never say, well, how much would you pay? Or would you pay? Or would you dedicate somebody 1 day a week to support us? At Microsoft, we did that. We had what was called the Design Partner Council. And we had some folks who were going to take our stuff to market, and they had to dedicate, in that case, like almost a full-time person to support us. They were almost like an extended member of the team. And without testing that commitment, man, interest is cheap, right?
Absolutely.
Whether it's your buddies, whether it's customers. And what's weird is, you know, at Microsoft, there were groupies. There were people who would just bend over backward to do anything with Microsoft.
Yep.
So it was easy to get these really misleading reads, you know, on what you were doing. And then the other thing that occurred to me is, yeah, when we solve our own problems, there is this inherent risk that we will build a product for ourselves, and we're not the customer, right? We're not the market. It is so easy to get sucked in and do something that we love, kind of like Homer Simpson's car. You know, I don't know if that reference means anything to anybody, but They had him design his own car, thinking, well, the common person, everybody will love it. But it was really just something he loved, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, all those things, you see all these forces converging almost to make you fail. There's so many traps, right?
Yep. It's interesting. This was for me, a point of contention. I'm a huge fan when we look at, right, who's the inspiration in tech and startups and who's aligned to the future. For me, I think the best, for me, who I like to follow are Jason Fried and DHH from 37 Signals. For me, like, they're ahead of the pack across the board, right? They were the first one to remote work. Remote came, was coming back. They're the first ones pushing off of the cloud because the costs and everything else, expenditures, so many things, they're ahead of the game. And they had the book Rework years ago. I remember reading this when I first joined back in 2012 and reading their book. And I got frustrated on the pain point of always build products for yourself. So I'm definitely a believer when you get that first feature or you get that first product, yes, right, build it for yourself. I have this problem. Again, I was a ex in enterprise. I had this problem. Let me build it for myself. And you launch a project and a bunch of people just like you come and use the product because you're solving a core problem. But at some point, then other people who aren't like you start coming across the product and maybe using you for similar cases, sister cases, whatever it may be. And they don't have the specific use case that you do. And at some point, I think historically, you've now had to start moving away and, right, building voice of customer and hearing what all your customers want and what needs they're trying to solve and how and why, and kind of build maybe a more robust platform that helps maybe more different people outside of your specific niche, right? Because the last 10 plus years has been horizontal SaaS. You have to build it for everybody, not just one team or one company. But I wonder if we're moving back. I think, the funding is moving more towards vertical SaaS, a specific team or a specific company. But I think even as that moves forward of getting away from VC back, right, having to build unicorns and $100 million companies and so on and so forth, and building smaller, more profitable, sustainable companies, that model of, hey, I'm this use case, I'm this ICP, I'm just always going to build a product for that ICP. I'm going to be the best product for someone who runs a design agency, for marketing firms, for whatever, and I'm going to be the best. That's all I'm going to build. I don't care about other agencies. I don't care about design companies. I want for this specific thing. But I understand I'm not looking to build $1 billion company. I'm building a $10 million company, a $30 million company, where I can always build what's for me, right? Because I own a design agency and I'm for marketing teams, and that's the only way. And I'm very interested. I'm very intrigued by this. My gut tells me we're going to see a lot more shift in movement into this specific space, very niche, very small type businesses, not trying to build unicorns, where, you know what, I'm just building for this specific use case, an ICP, where I feel the pain point, and I'm always going to build for that pain point that I have, because it's the same thing that my direct ICP have, and I'm going to drown out everybody else. And if you're working at a software company and you're a design partner and you want this, go find a tool that does that for you. That's not my tool. So it's quite interesting. And I think we're going to shift more in that direction. You're going to have companies that don't, but I think there's going to be a big shift in that direction of, hey, I'm just going to solve my pain points. And again, for my ICP, and not try to build huge companies.
So I have some thoughts around that and wanted to bring up one point around this build for yourself. So I was working at Microsoft and was doing some integration with the Office team and needed to look at one of their specs. So they sent me to the SharePoint with all their specs for Office, and there was no security on any of the documents. Anybody could go in, delete, edit, do whatever.
Yep.
And then I started realizing why, a lot of these things, like, they had a weird security model. It wasn't particularly manageable. It wasn't very granular. And it's because they didn't use it. So, you know what I mean? They didn't have this sense of what it was. When I asked the product manager about it, it was a lead product manager, and she was like, oh yeah, we're optimized for trust. I was like, wow, that is not most organizations, right?
Yep.
And then this thought about very specifically, like being very niche, because, now we can transition into this discussion about the potential of like Gen AI on coding things. Because I think we're going to go through a very weird period where in just a couple of days, you can implement almost anything you can imagine, right? It's going to be fascinating, and there's going to be this glut of poo on the market. It's going to be fascinating to watch. But I had that idea as well several weeks ago, and now I'm seeing little evidence where people build their own little like CRM. It's a CRM, it's software, and now since they're building it with GenAI, it's very fast. GenAI can go in and understand that stuff and help you extend it. So I'm wondering if even the next step, Scott, is almost like an app-like model, except for non-trivial problems, some more complex problems. And people will go out, they will say, hey, we built this thing, we support it, and we can customize it for you. But it's basically open source. If you just want to take it and kind of roll your own and extend it, knock yourself out. And the impact on some of these really big vendors, I think, is going to be, like open source had an impact on like the server market. And I'm wondering if we'll see the same kinds of things in software that I used to rely on big shops because I trusted them and all these other things. I wonder if GenAI can compensate, can create that, value.
Yeah, I mean, I think it can. I think it'll take time to get there for multiple cases. I think number one on the side of it's still quite technical, and you still need some, as much as you can say, like, I'm actually trying to do this myself now in a kind of a personal project. If I can build some specific tool using AI. And I started with the prompt starting off, hey, I'm not technical, I'm not a developer, so please like explain step by step. And it's like, okay, I got it. And it's interesting, like as we'll go along, and in some point it seems to forget that I'm not technical. And like at some point it's trying to troubleshoot an issue, and it says, okay, run this command or run that there. And I'm like, oh, do I do it in this directory or do I do it in that directory? Because you've jumped around different directories. Now you're telling me something, and now it's got to be, oh, okay, go back here. So I think as much as you can prompt, it doesn't seem like AI has that really true understanding throughout the whole process of, okay, you're dumb, you're not a coder, I'm going to give you step by step every type of thing, versus as we're going along, I'm not going to give you that. And in really understanding something else, I'm finding out that it sometimes jumps too far in without having like a 20,000 foot version. So one of the things I ran into as part of this process was I'm trying to create some plugin, and I go to create an account on Meta, and I create this business profile thing. And at first, I don't have a website for it yet, because I thought, hey, let me build the product, the idea first, and then build a website for it. And I got rejected or denied for this this app thing on Meta I'm trying to do. And I'm going like banging my head against the wall trying to get it solved. I get a website up and running to understand like, hey, right, really, what's the first thing you need to do? Build and launch a website and put a privacy policy and do all these things, which at first it was like, oh, okay, just fine, launch a website. And then it keeps getting rejected. Okay, now coming back, oh, you need a privacy policy. So I think, again, it's not so good at yet understanding truly what is that first step all the way before you even write the first line of code, and really kind of baby step moving into there.
What AI tool are you using to do this? Is it generalized?
Claude? Yeah, Claude, whatever we pronounce it.
Yeah, Claude, okay. Yep. So that's what I'm thinking, I think we're still in the first wave, and in the second wave, like I see dedicated platforms, and I've blogged about this a little, like what product discovery will look like in 2030, right? There will be dedicated platforms, I think, that walk you through all that stuff. And if people listening haven't done that, I got tripped up for some other reasons, but I wanted to do RAG on my machine. And it's so powerful, even these generalized platforms like ChatGPT, it took me through step by step. When I got errors, I just copy and pasted them back in. The image sometimes from the screen. And yeah, I mean, I need to restart that process, but the potential is massive.
Yeah, I'll give you the second, if I can start to interject, if I can give you the second, I think, half to that is, I think AI, again, especially probably for the next couple of years, will be very similar to no code, meaning you can get a product, an MVP, and bare bones MVP there. I can give you a 70% product. So I was watching one of these videos, how to build like an AI product, a product in AI in whatever an hour. And it goes through, and it was done by someone who was a proper developer, and he was, trying to with a mindset. And one of the things that he mentioned at the end is saying like, "Wow, I can't believe it gave me this whole functional code in whatever 10 minutes or what have you." But as I'm looking through the code, I see there's a lot of places that should be optimized. So I think the code output you're going to get is like that 70%, that MVP, that bare bones, like a no code type platform is. It's not going to be optimized. Is security even going to be involved? So if you're a product, do you need security? How important is security? So I think, again, it's going to get you that 70%. Hey, I can get an MVP out there, just like a no code platform. Let me get some validation. Let me get some people using it. Let me get some people to pay me money. And then once I actually get some traction, like a no code, hey, let me actually bring in a developer to build this right. I think even in the same case, at some point, a proper developer is going to have to come in, again, maybe at least for the foreseeable future, optimize the code, focus on security, focus on all these other things that a non-technical person has no idea about. One of these AI tools is not going to do, because that's not what it's functional to do. Where again, hey, I get an MVP out there, great, 70%, bring in some money, but it's not going to replace the developers, because it's not thinking those things, it's not optimizing, it's not, again, maybe 10, 15, 20 years, maybe yes, but I think in the near future, not so much.
So I think in a single digit number of years, there will be dedicated platforms that do security way better than human coders today, do UX better than most humans today. So I think I am more optimistic about what it will be able to do. And I am writing something now about what is going to happen to product managers. And I think because of GenAI, productivity, all these other things, it's going to fracture. And one of the jobs that remain, a subset of what's there today, you will see what I called, going back almost 20, 25 years, like app assemblers. I worked in a platform called Lotus Notes. It was brilliant. With all kinds of app functions and all this other stuff. You could build all kinds of apps that did all kinds of very interesting things. Governments used them to author bills and do approvals and votes and all this stuff. And now what I think will happen is some product managers will specialize. These low, no-code environments will be powered by GenAI. I think they will have like access to some developer capacity for the heavy lifting and stuff that it just doesn't see and all this stuff. But those people will learn how to go through this 0 to 1. They will be basically, let's say you learn this AI stuff and you become great at creating these prototypes. That is going to be a role in all companies. And people will get this thing up. They would be built eventually on platforms that can scale and everything else. It's not like it has to be thrown away. You will still need developers for, 10% of the work or something. That's my guess. That's where I see things going. So yeah, let's see how, I think it's just a matter of time, right? You say 10 years, 10 or 15 years. I think in a few years there will be platforms, because I think there are some low-code enterprise platforms already that do fairly impressive stuff. So let's see. But I guess the point is this stuff is coming. And at this point, even if you're not like super technical, being completely ignorant of it, I can't imagine is a good idea for anybody, whether you're thinking about a startup, whether you're in an established product or.
Yeah. I mean, for now, the biggest power for AI is called automation, right? And taking those manual tasks and helping you out with them and saving you time. So any business should think, hey, can I take these manual tasks away from my people to have more big impact ones? I was mentoring a company in the design space, trying to use UI and go into design teams, right? If you were in the design, had multiple screens, and they'd say, hey, I want to change this button from hex 1 to hex 2. And now I got to do it either in the design system or push it out or 15 different places. Hey, chat to the prompt. Hey, change this color to boom, boom, boom. Great. And now instead of spending 15 minutes or 10 minutes going into design system and pushing out updates, in like 10 seconds, I take that task away. And now giving designers, whoever it is, more time to focus on the big impact features, the big impact task to do, where all the small little things that were taking up my time, booking appointments. So if I'm an office manager and I got to take a call and I got to go to book a thing. If you can replace those things, allow the office manager to focus on something more impactful to grow the business and allow some system to take messages and book calendars and do this. I think that's where for the next number of years, the biggest impact of AI will come to, not, I think, in essence, replacing the office manager, designer, or what have you. It's, hey, making them more impactful. I think especially as we move towards, I think, remote work and async and the mindset of not paying people for hours or presence anymore and paying them based on contribution or impact. For now, if half of my work, the busy work, is all taken away from me by some AI automation, I can really focus on making a big impact. Okay, I don't maybe need to work 9 to 5 anymore, but I'm having this huge impact because all my time is focused on big impact items instead of all the busy work and other stuff I'm doing.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that, although I'm more pessimistic about the ultimate outcome. So people talk about automation. I think a lot more about augmentation. So I use GenAI for almost everything I do, and it just makes me a little more productive. And I am right now coaching a startup that's in the malware detection kind of industry. And they decided to go like super niche. They're going to go to market through a certain entity and they wanted to go super niche. I generated like, this is kind of a vanity metric, but I generated like a 40-page document on that market, this very narrow market, what it is, what are the common roles, how do they commonly respond to detections, what is the buyer's journey if they're looking for malware, what does their tech stack look like? So I am just so much more productive that I don't think it will be in most jobs, you'll have the same number of people. Now we just get more done. And my analog for that, and I see a lot of parallels, is what happened to auto workers in the 80s. They started automating, literally putting robots in to do their job, and they were all being told, no, they won't replace you. It's going to help you, and we're going to retrain you. And it didn't happen, right? There was just a big bloodletting through the 80s and 90s. If you look at car production, it's continued to climb basically, but the number of automobile workers. So yeah, it won't replace people in the traditional sense, like a robot replaces somebody on the assembly line. It's going to make a few people so productive that management will look at it just like they do today. So, every product team I've worked on was understaffed. We needed 10 developers, you get 7. Now, when they are, several times more productive, we'll say, well, I need 4. And they'll say, well, you get 2. That's my guess. That's my pessimistic guess, is that there is going to really be fundamental disruption at a speed we probably haven't seen in our lifetime.
Yeah, I think how long that takes. I've done a number of mentoring sessions, webinar things recently, the last few months, about AI in customer-facing teams like sales, customer support, customer success. And in most cases, I said, it's totally useless. Especially in customer support, AI is totally useless because it's specifically dependent on two things. Well, I guess really one thing, you having a extremely robust and well-written knowledge-based system, which almost no startup has, right? Your large enterprise, great.
Yeah.
Value there, but for everybody else, none. Or you have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of tickets that it could scan through and get pieces of. But again, the problem with that is products change over time. So how do you know you have the right information? So even like in a customer support case where you have a question, if it's simple, like an A/B situation, do you want a refund, or do you want us to send another package out, or do you have a question about this or a question about that? Yes, there's a value there. But where I think the biggest thing, and even sales in a lot of cases as well, until an AI system can read the actual code of the product and whatever security things around that, and maybe read Figma prototypes to actually understand the UI. Because now if it's, hey, I'm trying to do this task and it's not working. And AI is not going to know how the system works and be able to, okay, you click over here and you click over there and you try that. And if it's not working because maybe there's a bug, it can only tell you something that's based in the system. And similarly on sales, right? You can have an automated SDR asking questions, blah, blah, blah. But as soon as somebody's like, hey, can I get a demo of the product? An AI system's not going to be able to do that because it doesn't know the code, where I said, oh, you know what? Well, my use case is like this and this. Can your product do this? And
I
until no one knows the
wonder.
code in the product, it's not going to be, oh, yeah, let me show you that exact scenario. And
Yeah, I'm probably way too bullish on this AI stuff. But Claude, which you mentioned earlier, now has this ability for this thing to, right, take over your computer and do stuff on your computer. So how far away are we really? Whereas today there are frameworks and you have to like set up UI tests and stuff. How far away are we from giving it some basic documentation guidance, letting it loose, trying to use the product? Where it gets stuck, it asks somebody. By the way, I tried to change the postal code and I couldn't do it. Uh, and then I think you raise a great point that it will be able to go and look at the code and look at the logic and say, oh, it's because you assumed that, an address in the United States, blah, 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 whatever it is. So I don't know. I'm a little more bullish. I think we'll get to this point. It's a matter of time, right? I think it's going to happen sooner than we expect, and I'm probably wrong. So we'll see.
yeah, I mean, eventually I think we will get there. And I think, again, how the AI models, I remember at one of my previous companies, we had a process. It was a very manual process. It wasn't very good. But somebody who created a team plan had to go through this whole process of creating their team of collaborators. One day, we changed the word team to people or people to team. I forget which way directions. Literally within the next few days, I must have gotten 10 emails. I can't create a team anymore. There was a video, like a little GIF or whatever video that went through, click here, saw in the UI that was now 99% exactly the same as the UI in the video, except people was now team or team was people, whatever it was, and didn't see team or didn't see the word people. I can't do it. Didn't think to themselves, the UI is 99% the same. People is next to this thing. What happens if I click on people instead of team? Let me see what happens. So how does potentially like AI take in maybe years worth of data and even a question yesterday, right? I'm on a Friday and a new feature, right? People changes the team on a Sunday or a Friday night cutover. On Friday, it says, you come and you click the word team and you go da 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 da. Now a new feature rolls out and where UI change goes from people to team. And now on Monday, when somebody asks, I can't create a team anymore, how does AI going to know, or how much data and recent data is it going to need until it realizes, people is now team. So I need to change my answer from people to team. So again, yes, probably in the future, I think it's definitely there. But I think the interim, again, it's, I think, very good when there's good data behind it. When there's not that clear data, which no startup has, it's just.
But it raises a great point, Scott, which is I've been saying that core competency will become expressing our knowledge in a way that's highly consumable by these things. And I'm sure we've all done some experimentation with that, like trying to create a virtual version of ourselves.
Yep.
So I have the benefit of having a lot of lectures that I've done on product management, a lot of, like conceptual stuff that I have entire decks. I have transcripts from lectures. So it's pretty easy. It's not as easy for everybody. So figuring that out, to your point, how do we take the stuff? How do we generate content so that it's highly efficiently consumable by this stuff?
Yeah.
Anyway, Scott, we have probably gone a little beyond what I had expected. Really fascinating to talk to somebody that kind of comes from the other end of the spectrum, but it's a lot of the same problems, a lot of the same, kind of challenges. And I guess, like GenAI, AI in general, it's going to be fascinating to watch how it impacts people. And a lot of the impacts will be similar, I think.
No, absolutely. It will definitely have an impact. Again, I think it will be slower at the beginning. And I think it will be more of like a co-pilot for people in getting MVPs and getting something that's 70% there, which is fantastic because it will free so much more time for people who are working with you to have more impactful things. And where I need to come in and clean up that 20, 30%, okay, human being will do that for the time being. But where it goes in the future, I don't know. I think we're at the cusp of, maybe the biggest or one of the biggest renaissances to how we work and what work looks like. And AI will definitely have a piece of that into that. And I think it's fascinating where we're going to go. And I'm quite intrigued.
So are we headed into a renaissance right now or into some dark ages? That's the big question, right? So we shall see.
It's I believe we're in the Renaissance. I think work is very much going to change again, and there's so many, I think, different things that are lining into that of the whole remote movement, and it's going to be pushing back and return to office, and that be and presence versus productivity, and Gen Z and life work harmony instead of founder mode and hustle culture, and pushing a bank Gen I to be able to push out some little product to bring me $500 and passive income and all these. There's so
Yeah.
many different pieces I think that are coming in from all different directions. I think they're going to come and say, you know what, I don't need to do the founder culture anymore. I don't have to go build a startup and try to raise capital to build a $20-50 billion company that I'm working for 10 years and I'm working 18 hours and I'm crazy and this, and I don't see my family and I have no life work, no harmony. And like, I have to, and it's going to shift much more of like, hey, I can do something. I can have a 9 to 5 or a full-time job. I can have 5 or 6 projects that are running on the side that are making me side income. I'm only working 4 hours full time, but I'm making enough income. I'm spending more time doing the things I want to do. I'm focused more on stuff I enjoy to do because it allows me to do that. And I think there's going to be so much of these different pieces that come in there that allow us, that give us that opportunity to work in that way instead of the old school mentality of Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and hustle culture, and I get to burn out, give my all to a company who all I really am to them is a number in a spreadsheet. And as soon as I
Yeah.
become too expensive for them, I'm gone. Even though I've spent 5, 6, 7, 8 years dedicated and sweating in 12-hour days, and I mean nothing to them because I'm not a founder, and I walk away with nothing. Why would I want to do that anymore? I don't want to do
Yeah.
that anymore. So I think
All good stuff. Scott, thank you so much for your time. I think it's a super interesting conversation. And
absolutely
yeah, maybe we revisit this in 24 months and see what's
would
happening.
love to.
Yeah. Thanks.
Amazing. Thank you so much for the conversation. Really enjoyed it.